You don't belong here. Not in this line. Not with that posture. Not with that face pretending it earned command. The words crack across Gate C17 like a slap. The pilot doesn't lower his voice. He raises it, sharp, performative, tilting his chin so the crowd can see him. Priority boarding is for people who actually fly the plane, not charity cases who learned confidence from a podcast. He smirks, eyes raking over the woman's plain coat and soft shoes. Did you copy a boarding pass, or are you hoping no one notices you slipped in? A hush ripples outward. Phones pause mid-scroll. A child stops chewing gum. Dr. Lydia Brooks, 42, black medium brown skin, calm eyes, stands still with both hands folded around a slim leather briefcase. She wears a charcoal cardigan over a simple blouse, no jewelry beyond a thin wedding band. Her hair is neatly coiled, her posture straight but unassuming, like someone accustomed to rooms that listen without needing to be told. She breathes in, once, slow. The pilot steps closer, savoring the moment. Evan Rourke, 38, white, tall, movie star smile sharpened by entitlement. His uniform is immaculate, captain's stripes gleaming, phone held high on a live stream. He's famous. Millions of followers, brand deals, a face the airline uses when it wants to look confident. See, folks? Evan says to the crowd, to his camera. This is what happens when participation trophies start boarding airplanes. A laugh bubbles from someone behind him. He feeds on it. Ma'am, let me guess. Seat 1A? Of course. Everyone wants to sit where the adults sit. A gate agent stiffens. Security shifts their weight. No one intervenes. Lydia's boarding pass rests between her fingers. She doesn't raise it. She doesn't flinch. She looks at the carpet, navy with thin silver lines, and lets the noise pass over her like wind. Evan circles her half a step, theatrically sniffing. You smell that? It's entitlement mixed with delusion. He chuckles. Relax. I'm doing you a favor. This plane runs on discipline, precision, people who've earned respect. Not vibes. A man whispers, Is he serious? A woman squeezes her purse strap tighter. Lydia lifts her gaze, steady, measured. Sir, she says, voice low, even. I have a valid boarding pass. Evan laughs louder. Listen to that tone, like a TED talk on humility. He leans toward the gate agent. You checking IDs today or just letting anyone cosplay competence? The gate agent, early 20s, black, eyes darting, swallows. Sir, please. Oh, come on, Evan interrupts. If I let this slide, next thing you know, the cockpit's a book club. He turns back to Lydia. Step aside. You can board with General. Or better, try customer service. They'll explain how lines work. A few people shift uncomfortably. A phone camera lifts. Lydia closes her eyes for a beat. Not to retreat. To choose. She opens them, calm, intact. I'm not moving. Evan's smile hardens. Wow. Stubborn too. It's always the same script. He angles his camera for the best light. Folks, remember, confidence without credentials is just noise. A memory flickers behind Lydia's eyes. Flight simulators at dawn, counseling rooms thick with fear, young pilots shaking before their first command. She presses her thumb to the seam of her briefcase, grounding herself. Sir, she repeats, please lower your voice. He scoffs. Oh, now I'm being aggressive, right? That's cute. He glances at security. You guys want to handle this before it delays my flight? I've got actual responsibility waiting. Security steps closer. The crowd holds its breath. Lydia meets Evan's eyes. There is no anger there, only resolve. I won't be humiliated to make you comfortable. The words land softly, and somehow they hit harder than shouting. Evan blinks, irritated. Humiliated? You're embarrassing yourself. He waves dismissively. This is what happens when airlines chase optics instead of standards. Standards. The word settles, heavy, unnoticed, yet. The boarding announcement chimes. Evan smirks, satisfied, and pivots toward the jet bridge. Problem solved. He says to his stream, "Another day keeping the skies professional." Lydia remains where she is. As Evan disappears down the ramp, a gate supervisor finally approaches, voice tight. "Ma'am, we'll need to verify your seat." Lydia hands over the pass. Her fingers are steady. The supervisor scans it. The screen flashes green. A pause. Just a fraction too long. Lydia notices. She notices everything. She gathers her briefcase and steps forward, eyes lifting once more to the gate sign. C17. The number feels familiar, like a bookmark in a book she's written herself. Behind her, whispers begin. Ahead of her, Evan Rourke believes the moment is over. It isn't. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. Lydia walks onto the plane without another word. The silence follows her. If you have ever been talked down to, dismissed, or humiliated because someone thought you didn't belong, then what happens next with Lydia will make you rethink what real power looks like. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices to follow this story of quiet strength and justice. But the pilot's mistake wasn't the insult. It was believing the silence meant surrender. Evan stops mid-aisle like something has gone wrong with the aircraft itself. He's barely past row 2 when his eyes catch seat 1A, and the woman seated there. "Well," he says loudly, turning just enough so the entire cabin can hear him. "Would you look at that?" The aisle clogs instantly. A carry-on bumps a knee. A boarding pass flutters to the floor. Conversations die in half sentences. Evan doesn't move. "So the gate mistake followed me on board," he continues, smiling thinly. "That's impressive. Usually confusion gets corrected before takeoff." A ripple of discomfort spreads through the cabin. In seat 1A, Lydia looks up calmly. "Captain," she says evenly, "please allow boarding to continue." He laughs, short, sharp, performative. "Oh, I love this tone. Very confident." He gestures vaguely toward the cockpit. "You know, that door doesn't open because someone believes they belong up front." A phone lifts a few rows back. Another follows. Evan steps closer, narrowing the aisle deliberately. "Seat 1A is symbolic," he says. "Leadership, authority, responsibility." His eyes rake over her without apology. "It's not a motivational exercise." A woman in row 1 stiffens. A man across the aisle mutters something under his breath. Lydia keeps her hands folded. "I'm seated correctly." "That's debatable," Evan replies. "Confidence has a way of convincing people they've earned things they haven't." A flight attendant hesitates nearby, eyes flicking between them. "Captain," she says carefully, "we're almost finished boarding." "One moment," Evan snaps, never looking at her. He leans toward Lydia, lowering his voice just enough to feel personal. "Let me explain something. Sitting close to power doesn't mean you have it. Proximity isn't qualification." The insult is deliberate, surgical. A murmur passes through the cabin. Lydia meets his gaze. "You're out of line." Evan's eyebrows lift, amused. "Out of line?" He chuckles. "I've flown storms that don't care about feelings." He taps his phone. "And now I'm being corrected by someone who thinks calm delivery equals authority." The phone's red light blinks. The flight attendant tries again. "Sir, company policy." "Policy is exactly my concern," Evan cuts in sharply. "Policy keeps distractions out of the cockpit." He turns back to Lydia. "And right now, you are a distraction." The word lands like a slap. The cabin goes silent. Lydia inhales slowly. "I'm compliant. I'm seated. I'm not interfering with anything." "That's the problem," Evan fires back. "You're acting like you belong." A sharp breath escapes someone near the window. Evan straightens, addressing the cabin as if it's a briefing room. Aviation is about standards, chain of command, psychological fitness. His smile curls. We don't hand leadership to anyone who speaks softly and hopes no one challenges them. "This is bullying," a woman mutters. Evan ignores her. He leans in again, voice low and intimate, designed to humiliate. Push too far and reality corrects you, hard. Lydia's expression doesn't change. Step away. He laughs louder, reclaiming the stage. Oh, sweetheart. Things don't end because you ask nicely. He turns toward the flight attendant. Notify operations. Document passenger interference. She pales. Captain, she hasn't. Do it, Evan orders. Or I will. That's when Lydia stands. The movement is small, but it resets the room. Conversations stop. The air feels tighter. Even the engine hum seems to pause. She doesn't step into his space. She simply rises and holds it. Sit down, Lydia says quietly. You're not fit to command this moment. A collective gasp. Evan's smile falters for the first time. Excuse me. You heard me. For a heartbeat, it looks like he might explode. Then he recovers with a sneer. I don't take orders from passengers. I'm not giving you an order, Lydia replies. I'm naming behavior. Silence stretches, heavy, charged, undeniable. The purser appears at the front. Captain, cockpit, now. Evan breaks eye contact, scoffing as he turns. Enjoy the seat while it lasts, he mutters. Delusions don't fly long. He strides forward. Lydia sits. The cabin exhales in fragments. Boarding resumes, awkward and hushed. A woman across the aisle leans over. Are you okay? Yes, Lydia answers. And she means it. Behind her, a man murmurs, You handled that with more restraint than he deserved. She offers a faint smile and turns toward the window. Up front, Evan settles into the left seat, jaw tight. He tells himself he's won. That volume equals authority. That silence equals weakness. Behind him, in seat 1A, Lydia folds her hands and waits. She knows something he doesn't. This collision was never about a seat. It was about command. And the reckoning has already begun. The cabin door seals with a muted thump that echoes longer than it should. It's the sound Evan's been waiting for. Before the safety briefing finishes, before the aircraft even nudges away from the gate, he unbuckles and rises from the cockpit threshold, one hand braced against the frame like a man claiming territory. His voice cuts through the cabin, not amplified, just practiced. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a brief delay. Murmurs ripple. Someone checks their watch. A baby fusses and then quiets. Evan smiles as if he's doing them a favor. This delay is due to a situation that needs to be addressed for everyone's safety. Every head turns. His eyes land, unblinking, on seat 1A. Lydia sits still, hands folded over her briefcase, gaze forward. She feels the shift before she hears it, the collective focus, the heat of attention. She has lived this moment in other rooms, other contexts. The stage is new, the script is not. Evan steps fully into the aisle now, blocking the flow like a dam. Aviation is not a debate club, he says. It's not a place for social experiments or confidence cosplay. He lets the words hang. It runs on hierarchy, discipline, and respect for authority. A few nervous laughs flutter and die. Evan continues, warming to the performance. Most passengers understand that. They follow instructions. They don't challenge crew, and they certainly don't try to assert themselves where they don't belong. Belong. The word lands hard and clean. Phones rise. Red lights blink. Lydia lifts her chin. Captain, she says evenly, you're creating a disturbance. The cabin inhales as one. Evan laughs, loud, contemptuous. Oh, listen to that. Language. He shakes his head. Confidence without credentials is dangerous, especially when it starts pretending to be authority. He moves closer, narrowing the aisle until his shadow cuts across her seat. This seat up here, he says quietly, cruelly. It doesn't make you important. It just puts you where important people sit. Lydia looks up at him. Then why does it bother you so much that I'm in it? The question freezes the room. For half a second, Evan's mask slips. Then he scoffs. I'm offended, he snaps. There's a difference. A man behind Lydia mutters, This is wrong. Evan snaps his head toward the voice. Sir, if you're uncomfortable, you're welcome to disembark. We run a tight operation. No one moves. Lydia breathes in, slow, controlled. She stands. The sound of the seat shifting is small, but it carries. The cabin feels it. She doesn't rush. She doesn't posture. She simply rises and holds her space. I followed every instruction, she says. I boarded when called. I sat where assigned. I posed no threat to safety. Evan leans in, invading her space deliberately. You're challenging a captain in front of his cabin, he whispers. That alone tells me everything about your judgment. Her voice doesn't waver. Your title does not excuse abuse. A gasp travels down the aisle. Evan straightens and raises his voice again, reclaiming the crowd. This is exactly the problem, he says, gesturing at her like evidence. This is what happens when people mistake calm tone for competence. Soft voices don't fly airplanes. Neither does cruelty, Lydia replies. The words cut cleanly, surgical. For a heartbeat, no one breathes. Evan's face reddens. Sit down, he orders. Lydia doesn't move. I will not be publicly humiliated to protect your ego, she says quietly. That's when Evan snaps. Enough, he barks, spinning toward the front. Document this. Passenger interference. I want security waiting at the gate. The purser hesitates. Captain, do you want to explain a cockpit distraction to the board? Evan cuts in coldly. Or should I? The irony slides through the room unnoticed. A low wave of outrage begins to stir. That's harassment. He's abusing his power. Why is no one stopping him? Evan raises his hands in mock calm. Everyone relax. We're professionals here. He turns back to Lydia. Ma'am, sit down, or this becomes more complicated than it needs to be. Lydia studies him, not with anger, not with fear, but with clarity. She sees the addiction to applause, the confusion of volume with control. She understands the trap. She chooses restraint. Lydia sits, not because he told her to, because she refuses to give him the spectacle he wants. The cabin exhales in broken pieces, relief braided with shame. Evan straightens his jacket, satisfied. Thank you, he says, dripping with condescension. See how cooperation works? He turns and steps back into the cockpit, sealing the door behind him. Inside, he allows himself a grin. He believes he's won. That public pressure bends people. That humiliation enforces order. Behind the door, engines begin their low, steady hum. In seat 1A, Lydia closes her eyes. Not in defeat, in resolve. She opens her briefcase just enough to check her phone. No alerts yet, no messages. She slips it back inside untouched. Timing matters. Around her, whispers bloom. You didn't deserve that. She handled it with grace. He went too far. A woman across the aisle leans over, voice trembling. I'm sorry, Lydia nods once. Thank you. As the aircraft begins to taxi, sunlight slants through the windows, casting long shadows down the aisle, light and dark dividing the cabin like a quiet verdict. Up front, Evan settles into his seat, convinced power has spoken. He doesn't know that every word he unleashed is now living beyond this cabin. Recorded, shared, preserved, waiting. Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. The plane lifts from the runway, and the truth rises with it. If you have ever been humiliated in public, told to know your place, or watched someone abuse authority while others stayed silent, stay with this story. Like and subscribe and stand with Dignity Voices, where quiet strength exposes injustice and dignity outlasts cruelty. He thinks the silence means surrender. He doesn't realize it's discipline. The aircraft climbs through a band of cloud and levels out, the engines settling into a steady, disciplined hum. Seatbelts click. Overhead lights dim. The cabin exhales. But the release is incomplete, like a breath held too long and let go carefully so no one notices the shake. In seat 1A, Lydia sits motionless, hands folded, gaze angled toward the oval window. The world outside is all white and blue now, a clean geometry that feels almost merciful after the mess of voices and stares. Her reflection floats faintly in the glass. Calm face, steady eyes, an anchor amid a cabin still recalibrating itself. People whisper, not loudly, not boldly, in fragments. That was uncomfortable. He didn't have to do that. I can't believe no one stopped him. A woman across the aisle pretends to read the safety card, again, flipping it once too often. 2 rows back, a man types furiously on his phone, deletes, starts over. A teenager lowers his device and looks at the floor, unsure what to do with what he's captured. The purser passes by, pauses half a beat, and meets Lydia's eyes. An apology flickers there, professional, restrained, sincere. Lydia inclines her head just enough to acknowledge it. Nothing more is needed. Up front, the cockpit door remains sealed. Inside, Evan stares at the instrument panel as if willing it to absolve him. He runs checklists he knows by muscle memory, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Everything is green, everything is normal, and yet the silence needles him. He adjusts his headset, clears his throat. The first officer glances over. Just a glance, but it feels longer than it is. "You good?" the first officer asks, voice neutral. "Fine," Evan snaps, then reins it in. "Yeah, fine." The horizon line on the display stays straight and level. Evan likes things straight and level, controlled. He tells himself the incident is over, that altitude smooths everything, that authority settles disputes. Still, a sentence repeats in his mind, unwanted and sharp. "Your title does not excuse abuse." He pushes it away. In the cabin, the drinks cart rattles into motion. Ice clinks, cups rustle, routine resumes, but it's performative now, layered over something raw. A flight attendant stops at seat 1A. "Water?" she asks, careful. "Yes, please," Lydia replies, voice soft. The attendant hands her the cup, fingers brushing lightly, and offers a grateful smile. Lydia returns it, small and steady. The exchange seems to loosen something in the aisle. A few shoulders drop. A few eyes lift. A man in row 2 leans across the aisle, whispering, "You handled that with more restraint than I would have." Lydia turns slightly. "Restraint keeps options open," she says. He nods, chastened. Time stretches. The seatbelt sign remains on. The cabin settles into the rhythm of flight, hums and murmurs, the low lull that invites reflection whether you want it or not. Lydia closes her eyes briefly, not to escape, but to listen. She catalogs what matters and discards what doesn't. She remembers a training room years ago, a young pilot spiraling under pressure, her voice steady as she guided him back to center. Lower the noise. Breathe. Decide. She opens her eyes and reaches into her briefcase, fingers passing the slim Bible and leather folio to her phone. She checks it once. Nothing. Good. Timing matters. She slips the phone back and looks down the aisle. The flight attendant who had failed to intervene earlier stands near the galley, shoulders tight. Lydia catches her eye and offers the smallest nod. The attendant exhales and straightens. A few minutes later, a subtle vibration hums against Lydia's ankle where the briefcase rests. She waits. Another vibration follows. She opens the folio just enough to glance. Unknown, audio verified. Unknown, multiple sources. Lydia's thumb stills. She types a single word. Proceed. She locks the phone and slides it back, heart rate unchanged. The first domino tips, not loudly, not publicly, quietly, correctly. Up front, Evan senses a pressure he can't name, a tightness behind his eyes. He rolls his shoulders and focuses on the instruments. The first officer's silence feels heavier now, as if it's learned to watch. "You want me to take radios?" the first officer offers. Evan hesitates, noting the offer where none existed before. "I've got it," he says. He doesn't. The cabin light warms as the plane reaches cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign clicks off. Passengers stand, stretch, move. The space breathes again, cautiously. A woman 2 rows back murmurs to her seatmate, "My sister flies, if that's how they talk to people." Her seatmate answers, "It's not about people, it's about power." Lydia hears them. She hears everything. She studies the aisle like a river. Who yields, who pushes, who looks away. Patterns reveal character. Character predicts outcomes. The purser approaches once more, voice low. "Ms. Brooks, if there's anything you need—" "Thank you," Lydia says. "I'm fine." He hesitates. "I'm sorry." She meets his eyes. "I know." That's all she gives him. It's all that's required. An hour passes. The cabin grows quieter, the way it does when people settle into acceptance. Lydia looks out at the wing, sunlight glinting off metal. She thinks about standards, not as weapons, but as guardrails, about leadership, not as volume, but as stewardship. About moments like this, small on the surface, seismic beneath. She remembers a verse her mother taught her long before titles and corridors of power, and she lets it steady her breath. "Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." Proverbs 16:32. Across the aisle, the woman with the safety card leans over again. "Do you think anything will come of it?" she whispers. Lydia considers the question. "Accountability isn't a spectacle," she says softly. "It's a process." The woman nods, absorbing it. In the cockpit, Evan's phone, muted, buzzes inside his bag. He ignores it. "Focus," he tells himself. "Fly the plane. Maintain control." The irony presses in, but he doesn't name it. Another hour slides by. The cabin dims further. A child laughs somewhere near the back, a clean sound that cuts through the tension like a promise. Lydia folds her hands again. The briefcase rests at her feet, unremarkable to anyone who doesn't know what it carries. Not documents, not threats, but a framework. Standards, evaluations, a mirror the airline will soon be forced to look into. She doesn't smile. She doesn't gloat. She waits, because silence, when chosen, is not surrender. It is preparation. And when the moment arrives, it won't require raised voices. It will require only truth, delivered with precision. The aircraft hums onward, unaware of the recalibration already underway. Ahead, the sky opens. Behind the cockpit door, certainty begins to crack. And in seat 1A, Lydia keeps her gaze steady, ready for what comes next. The aircraft touches down with a measured thump, tires gripping runway like truth-finding purchase. Applause breaks out in the back rows, habitual, almost reflexive, then fades as the engines reverse and the plane slows. The cabin fills with the sounds of arrival, seatbelts snapping free, overhead bins creaking open, the soft impatience of people ready to stand and move on. For most of them, the flight is over. For Lydia, it's only beginning. She remains seated until the aisle clears. The briefcase rests at her feet, its edges worn smooth by years of rooms that looked nothing like this cabin and yet demanded the same thing, clarity without theatrics. When she stands, she does so without hurry, folding her cardigan once and sliding it into the case. Her phone vibrates. OPS, Conference Room B. Immediate HR, attendance required. She replies with one word, confirmed. Up front, Evan steps into the jet bridge buoyed by the muscle memory of arrival. He trades a grin with a gate supervisor, signs a clipboard, nods at a pair of passengers who recognize him from a screen. He tells himself the incident is already shrinking, compressed by altitude and time into something manageable. People have short memories. Systems prefer quiet. "Captain, an operations manager says, catching up to him. We need you in conference room B. Evan laughs lightly. For what? Now, the manager repeats. The conference room overlooks the tarmac through a wall of glass. Below, ground crews move with synchronized efficiency, fluorescent vests flashing in practiced patterns. Inside, the room is tight with purpose. HR, operations, compliance, the purser. The first officer takes a seat near the door, eyes lowered. Evan drops into a chair, crossing his arms. All right, he says, casual bravado intact. What's the emergency? The door opens. Lydia enters. Conversation stops mid-breath. She walks to the head of the table, not claiming it, not asking for it. The space simply opens. She sets the briefcase down, opens it with deliberate care, and places a slim folder on the polished surface. Then she looks up. Good afternoon, she says. Thank you for assembling on short notice. Evan scoffs. This is unbelievable. She's a passenger. Lydia turns her gaze to him, calm, unmoved. I'm here in my professional capacity. A compliance officer clears his throat. Confirmed. The word hangs, heavier than volume. Lydia continues. What occurred at boarding and during taxi meets the threshold for immediate review under the command integrity framework. Evan leans forward. This is absurd. A misunderstanding blown out of proportion. Misunderstandings de-escalate, Lydia replies. What we observed escalated. She nods toward the screen mounted on the wall. Please play the recordings. Audio fills the room, unmistakable, unedited. Evan's voice cuts through, sharp and contemptuous. Belong, distraction, sit down. The video follows, shaky but clear, capturing posture and proximity, the deliberate narrowing of space. The room tightens. Pause, Lydia says. Silence. This is not about embarrassment, she continues. It's about command readiness, how authority is exercised under stress. Evan pushes his chair back. I was maintaining order. You were asserting dominance, Lydia replies evenly. There's a difference. She opens the folder and slides a document down the table. Effective immediately, your command status is suspended, pending retraining and evaluation. Evan stands. You can't do this. I can, Lydia says, and I am. HR speaks, careful. Captain, per policy. This is a witch hunt, Evan snaps, anger bleeding through control. You enjoyed this. You set me up. Lydia meets his glare without flinching. I endured you, she says. There's a difference. She closes the folder. You will not fly until the evaluation is complete. No one objects. Outside the glass, a jet lifts into the sky, engines roaring, indifferent to the recalibration happening inside. Evan looks around the table, faces that once deferred now distant. He scoffs, grabs his cap, and storms out. The door shuts behind him with a sound that feels final. The room exhales. Lydia remains. She answers questions. She assigns follow-ups. She speaks about culture, not punishment, about standards, not spectacle. She listens to concerns without ceding ground. When it's done, she steps into the corridor alone. The terminal beyond is quieter now. The young gate agent from earlier approaches, eyes bright but steady. Thank you, she says, for how you handled it. Lydia smiles gently. For how you'll handle the next one, she replies. She walks to the window overlooking the runway. Planes queue, engines idling, waiting their turn. The order is precise, the choreography exact. Systems work when everyone agrees the rules matter. Her phone vibrates again. HR, press inquiry pending. OPS, cultural audit initiated. She slips the phone away. Justice doesn't need an audience, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be brought to light. Luke 8:17. Lydia breathes, letting the verse settle, not as triumph, but as reminder. Truth surfaces on its own timetable. The work is to be ready when it does. She turns from the glass and walks on. The reveal is complete. The protocol has been activated, and the system finally has something to answer to. If you've ever watched someone misuse power and wondered whether truth would ever catch up, stay with this story. Like and subscribe to Dignity Voices, where quiet integrity resets broken systems. He thought grounding one man would end it. He doesn't know the protocol has only just begun. The door closes behind Evan without drama. No slam, no echo, just a soft administrative click that sounds like something being finalized in a system that does not care how loudly you protest. Beyond the corridor, the airline's operations wing hums awake. Screens brighten, calendars populate, names shift quietly from active to review. The process begins not with outrage, but with precision. Justice, when it is real, rarely raises its voice. Lydia stands at the head of the operations briefing room, hands resting lightly on the table. Glass walls reveal the glow of the terminal beyond, a living diagram of order and motion. Around her sit compliance, legal, training, HR, and flight operations. No one interrupts. No one questions her presence. Authority is already settled. Begin, Lydia says. A compliance officer taps a tablet. The main screen fills with a timeline, timestamps, incident markers, archived complaints once dismissed as tone issues or miscommunications. Red indicators bloom like quiet warnings ignored for too long. This was not isolated, the officer says. It's a pattern. Lydia nods. Patterns are systems speaking. She steps closer. Initiate command integrity protocol. Tier 1. The room stills. Legal confirms the implications. Immediate suspension of command privileges for flagged captains pending evaluation. Yes, Lydia replies. Technical skill without emotional regulation is a safety risk. Phones vibrate across the table. Emails fire. Scheduling software updates. The protocol propagates outward, invisible but unstoppable, through databases and certifications that do not care about reputations. Down the hall, Evan sits alone in a windowless evaluation room. His cap rests on the table, gold braid catching fluorescent light. A laminated sign on the wall reads, "Fitness for command. In progress." He checks his phone again. Messages stack up. Confusion, outrage, support. He flips the device face down. A knock. Two people enter. They do not smile. "This is a fitness for command assessment," one says. "Answer honestly." Evan scoffs. "This is retaliation." "It's process," the evaluator replies. "Let's begin." The questions come calmly. "What was your emotional state during the boarding incident? What threat did you perceive? How do you define respect within a hierarchy?" Evan answers quickly at first, rehearsed and defensive. As the questions persist, his voice tightens. Each interruption is logged, each deflection recorded. When his tone sharpens, the evaluator notes it without comment. There is no argument to win here, only patterns to expose. Back in operations, the ripple spreads. Training schedules are recalibrated. A memo releases automatically. Leadership recertification mandatory, not punishment, alignment. In the crew lounge, a flight attendant reads it twice, then exhales. "They're actually doing it." A colleague nods. "About time." Lydia walks the floor, listening. She pauses by a window overlooking the runway where aircraft queue patiently, lights blinking like steady heartbeats. She remembers proposing this protocol years ago. The polite smiles, the shelving. Too strict, they said. Too theoretical. She smiled back and waited. Now, nothing is shelved. Afternoon bleeds into evening. Legal drafts notices. Careful, firm. HR prepares counseling resources alongside evaluations. The press office drafts a holding statement promising transparency without spectacle. Lydia reads it and points to a word. "Remove isolated." The director nods. Done. In the training hangar, pilots sit through an unscheduled briefing. The room is sober, attentive. On the screen appears Lydia's framework, not her face. Power under pressure, Command as stewardship. Regulation before authority. A pilot raises a hand. What happens if someone fails? They don't command until they pass, the instructor replies. No one argues. In the evaluation room, Evan's assessment continues. Do you believe public humiliation is effective leadership? The evaluator asks. Evan hesitates. Sometimes people need to be put in their place. The evaluator writes something down. When challenged, what alternatives did you consider besides escalation? Evan opens his mouth, then closes it. Silence fills the room. Not accusatory, just present. Night settles over the airport. In operations, Lydia signs the final authorization. The pen moves smoothly, decisively. Around her, the system hums, recalibrated and alert. A junior analyst approaches, voice tentative. Dr. Brooks? Yes. I've been here 8 years. This is the first time I've seen accountability without anyone screaming. Lydia offers a faint smile. Screaming is inefficient. The analyst nods, relieved. Evan is escorted from the evaluation room. Not roughly, not publicly, firmly. Your command privileges remain suspended pending retraining and reassessment, the evaluator says. This isn't a verdict. It's a path. Evan laughs hollowly. You think this makes flying safer? The evaluator pauses. It makes people safer. Evan says nothing. Lydia gathers her briefcase and walks toward the exit. She passes windows framing the dark runway, lights blinking, planes departing and arriving with disciplined regularity. Order persists. Systems endure. She stops once more, resting her palm against the cool glass. Justice doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with checklists, with standards, with people, finally willing to look. Behind her, protocols continue. Emails sent, schedules updated, culture nudged back into alignment. Ahead, the night opens, wide and quiet. Somewhere in a small room, a man who believed volume was power begins to learn what silence demands. The protocol has spoken, calmly, precisely, and without apology. The collapse does not arrive with sirens or shouting. It arrives at 6:43 a.m., carried quietly through servers and inboxes, written in language that leaves no room for interpretation. Across the airline, screens refresh at the same moment. Supervisors pause mid-sip of coffee. Crew lounges fall silent as the subject line appears. Command Integrity Directive. Effective immediately, no names, no drama, only consequences. Inside the memo, sentences are short and unambiguous. Command privileges suspended pending evaluation. Mandatory recertification for all flight captains. Independent oversight embedded into operations and training. Cultural audit escalated to external review. No one asks who triggered it. Everyone knows. In the crew lounge, a senior flight attendant reads the memo twice, then folds it carefully as if it might disappear if mishandled. She exhales, slow and deep. So it wasn't just us, she says. A younger attendant nods, eyes shining. They finally believed us. The collapse is not of aircraft or schedules. It is the collapse of immunity. In a locker room tucked behind maintenance corridors, Evan stands in front of his open locker. The space feels smaller than it used to. The uniform hangs there, pristine, gold stripes catching fluorescent light with almost mocking precision. He removes the epaulets first, then the cap. He sets them on the bench, side by side, hands lingering longer than necessary. There is no camera here, no audience, no one to perform for. His phone vibrates. Messages pile up. Supporters confused, critics emboldened, sponsors silent. He turns the phone face down and sits. For the first time in years, there is nothing to manage but himself. By mid-morning, briefings across the terminal change shape. They run longer, not louder, longer. Questions replace jokes. Checklists replace bravado. In a training room, chairs are pulled closer to the screen displaying a framework that many recognize but few expected to see enforced. Power under pressure. Command as stewardship. Regulation before authority. A captain raises a hand. If someone fails the evaluation, what happens? The instructor answers evenly. They do not command until they pass. No objections follow, only nods. On the mezzanine overlooking the terminal, Lydia pauses beside the glass railing. Below her, travelers move in steady currents, rollers clicking, announcements chiming, children tugging at tired hands. The airport continues its endless work of movement. But the tone is different. At Gate C17, a new supervisor briefs a small team. He listens when a gate agent speaks. He repeats, back her concern to confirm understanding. He thanks her. Lydia watches from a distance, unseen. This is the change she measures. Not headlines, not apologies, behavior. A training manager approaches her quietly. We've enrolled 92 captains so far, she says. No pushback, just acceptance. Lydia nods. When standards are clear, resistance fades. At noon, the airline releases a statement. It avoids names and focuses on values. We are implementing immediate reforms to ensure command readiness includes emotional regulation, accountability, and respect. Safety is holistic. The media debates it loudly. Inside the building, no one does. A flight attendant sends a message to a group chat. I feel safer today. It is forwarded again and again. In a conference room, executives sit through a debrief that feels unfamiliar. There is no hedging, no defensive language. Data replaces excuses. Testimonies replace anecdotes. One executive clears his throat. We rewarded charisma and called it leadership. No one contradicts him. Lydia speaks last, as she always does. Power is not a personality trait, she says calmly. It is a responsibility. When we confuse the two, people get hurt. Pens move. Commitments are logged. Afternoon light stretches long across the terminal floor. At a coffee kiosk, the gate agent from the day before works through a steady line. When a passenger snaps impatiently, she responds firmly, respectfully. A supervisor steps in, not to override her, but to support her without being asked. Lydia passes without stopping. This moment does not belong to her. Back in the locker room, Evan finishes packing a bag he never expected to need. He pauses once more, looking at the empty space where his uniform hung. Then he closes the locker. The sound echoes. In the corridor outside, he hesitates, listening for applause that never comes. Silence answers instead. He walks on. As evening approaches, training rooms empty and briefings conclude. Schedules update. Rosters adjust. No flights are canceled. No chaos erupts. The system absorbs the correction. At the window overlooking the runway, Lydia stops again. Planes queue patiently, engines idling, waiting their turn. A child presses his face to the glass as an aircraft lifts smoothly into the sky. She thinks about systems, not as punishment, but as promise. Promise that dignity matters, that silence does not mean consent, that restraint can recalibrate power. Her phone vibrates. OPS, external audit confirmed, HR, oversight board seated. She slips the phone away. No smile, no sigh, just resolve. In the crew lounge, the senior flight attendant tucks the memo into her bag. I was thinking about leaving, she admits. Not anymore, her colleague nods. Me too. Night settles over the airport. Lights blink on in sequence. Announcements soften. The pace steadies. The collapse completes itself, not with spectacle, but with alignment. Lydia stands near the exit, hand resting briefly against the cool glass, and recalls the verse her mother used to speak whenever the world felt loud and unfair. The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of his unfailing love. Psalm 33:5. She lets the words ground her, not as judgment, but as direction. Then she turns and walks into the night. Behind her, the system continues, awake, accountable, recalibrated. Not perfect, but corrected. And finally, listening. The airport at night is a different place. Not empty, just honest. The crowds thin into echoes. Rolling suitcases soften against carpet. Overhead announcements lose their urgency and become gentle reminders that time is still moving, even when no one is rushing anymore. The terminal lights glow warmer now, reflecting off glass and steel that have carried too much tension today and are grateful for the quiet. At Gate C17, the sign still hangs where it always has. Same gate, same number. But the air around it has changed. Lydia stands a few steps back from the window, hands folded loosely at her waist. The briefcase is gone. No folders, no protocols, no authority to exercise, just stillness. Just a woman who has spent the day holding weight that did not belong to her and choosing not to drop it on anyone else. Beyond the glass, a plane taxis slowly toward the runway. Its lights blink with patient certainty. The sound of its engines rises and falls, restrained, purposeful. Lydia watches it and thinks about circles, how stories return us to their starting points, not to repeat pain, but to reveal distance traveled. This gate was once a stage for cruelty, a place where power tried to prove itself by shrinking another human being. Now it is simply a gate again, a threshold. Footsteps approach behind her. She hears them before the voice. "Dr. Brooks?" It's the gate agent from earlier. Her posture is straighter now, her tone steadier, as if something inside her has been realigned. She stops a respectful distance away, hands clasped in front of her. "I just wanted to say thank you," she says. Lydia turns. "For what?" "For not yelling," the agent answers honestly. "For not humiliating him back. For showing us there's another way." Lydia studies her for a moment, then smiles gently. "Yelling feels powerful," she says, "but it teaches nothing." The agent nods. "I was scared yesterday. I froze." "So did I," Lydia replies softly. The confession lands. "But fear doesn't disqualify us," Lydia continues. "It just tells us the moment matters." The agent absorbs that, eyes bright. "I won't forget." They stand together for a moment, watching the plane roll into position. Then the agent thanks her again and returns to her post, moving with quiet confidence, like someone who has found her footing. Lydia remains at the window. She thinks of Evan, not with triumph, not with bitterness. He is no longer a villain in her mind. He is a man standing at a crossroads, stripped of noise, forced to confront the difference between authority and character. Justice reached him, but grace will decide who he becomes. Her phone vibrates once. She checks it. No alerts, no emergencies, no fires. For the first time since boarding, the system is quiet. That is how she knows it worked. Lydia steps closer to the glass. The aircraft pauses at the runway threshold, engines spooling, gathering strength. For a brief moment, it holds, balanced between ground and sky. She whispers a prayer under her breath, not for vindication, not for credit, for wisdom, for leaders who remember that power is borrowed, not owned, for systems that protect the vulnerable without spectacle, for restraint that outlives outrage. The plane accelerates and lifts smoothly into the night, lights rising like a constellation rearranging itself. Lydia exhales. This is the image she keeps, not the insults, not the meeting, not the suspension. Flight, release, alignment. She turns away from the window and walks toward the exit. The terminal opens around her, wide, quiet, forgiving. As she reaches the automatic doors, she pauses one last time, resting her hand lightly against the cool glass. Today proved something she has always known, but rarely seen confirmed so clearly. That justice does not need rage to be real. That silence, when chosen deliberately, can reset entire systems. That dignity, held firmly, quietly, can correct what force never could. She steps outside into the night air. Behind her, the airport continues its work. Flights depart, others land. People arrive carrying their own stories, unaware of what was corrected here today and protected for them tomorrow. Ahead of her, the dark opens gently. Not victory, not revenge, peace. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. Lydia carries the verse with her as she walks away. Justice, mercy, humility, not one without the others. This story isn't only about an airline, a pilot, or a public confrontation. It's about who you choose to become when you are mistreated. The world often tells us that strength means shouting louder, humiliating back, proving dominance in front of witnesses. But God's word and lived experience tell a deeper truth. Real power is self-control, anchored in truth. Lydia didn't win because she embarrassed someone. She won because she stayed aligned. Aligned with truth instead of impulse. Aligned with discipline instead of ego. Aligned with God's timing instead of human applause. If you have ever been underestimated, disrespected, or silenced because someone assumed you didn't belong, remember this. Your dignity does not need permission. Your restraint is not weakness. And justice, when entrusted to the right hands, moves quietly, but it moves completely. God sees what is hidden. God exposes what is false, and God restores what systems break without shouting. If the story spoke to you, if you believe dignity still matters, if you know that quiet courage can change entire systems, subscribe to Dignity Voices. Like this story, share it with someone who needs encouragement today because justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it lands softly.